New this afternoon, a huge award for a Houston doctor, Dr. Jim Allison at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center, is now a Nobel Prize winner. He was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. Dr. Allison launched an effective new way to attack cancer by treating the immune system rather than the tumor. He shares this prize with a professor who made the same discovery working separately in Japan. Dr. Allison is the first MD Anderson scientist to receive the award for outstanding discoveries in the fields of life and sciences and medicine.
You know, a lot of cancer in my family, and my mother passed away from lymphoma when I was 10 years old, and she'd had radiation therapy, and one of her brothers died of lung cancer and had chemotherapy, and I saw the ravages of those kinds of treatment.
Thanks to the breakthroughs, new drugs allow a patient's own T cells to better attack cancer. Until then, treatment often meant harsh surgery, radiation, and/or chemotherapy. Dr. Allison, whose wife is also a cancer researcher at MD Anderson, will be honored at the Nobel ceremonies in Stockholm in December. Congrats.